Hoop Radio, egte radio, jou inspirasiestasie.
Kingfisher FM.
Delighted to have Francois Pauw joining me live in studio. Francois, thank you for taking the time to come and chat to us. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, tell us a bit about yourself, firstly.
Okay, so I'm a lawyer in Port Elizabeth, and honest lawyer. So I'm practicing law in Port Elizabeth. I'm a Christian. I am coming from a very big home where my mother had 4 boys. I'm the youngest of them. So
that is an interesting dynamic, eh?
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Bloom. Okay. Bloom, came to PE 2001. Been here ever since, and just love Port Elizabeth. Yeah. Can't pronounce the new name yet, but
GQ. Go with GQ. And I think one of a divorce lawyer, and having been through divorce yourself as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's when you talk to psychologists and people like that, they see it almost the same as stress levels as you go through a bereavement. It's really a terrible time for anybody.
Yes.
It's not something that anybody condone, and people think that, listen, because you're helping people in that area, you're condoning divorce and you're saying it's okay, but that's not the case. You're helping people when they are in a tough time, when they really struggle.
Of course,
and that when I went through that divorce, and I felt what I felt for the children, I basically at that stage, the Lord just carried me through that, So I'm a big believer is that the Lord takes the situations that we're in, He uses it to form your heart and to form your soul.
Yeah. It's a big decision to end a marriage. There's so much that goes into it, particularly when there are children involved. So, I mean, you stepping in as a divorce lawyer to get involved is you're more than a lawyer many times.
Yeah, no, it's an emotional thing. That's why I've got some background in counseling. I did a master's course in NLP, so to help people through understand what they go through, the emotions and all those things. I'm also a qualified mediator in that sense. So it's a human perspective, but it's also a financial perspective. It's also being a father and a mother, being a parent for those kids. Being in that situation is very complex, and it's very unique to every person that goes through that situation.
Yeah. What are some of the key things that you do in those moments? Because someone comes to you, obviously now they've approached you and said, look, it's not working out. I mean, so there's almost like it's not just happen like that. I mean, no. I had a friend actually who messaged me last week. I was the best man at their wedding, and they've tried for years to make it work. And then in fact, I think it was last week, Thursday, they just messaged to say, look, we're at the courts, we're signing papers.
Well, the first thing that I advise my clients or somebody that's walking in there is, listen, are you sure this is what you want to do? Do you have clarity? Do you know the consequences of what you're going to do? Because it's like a stick. If you break it, it's broken. It's very difficult to go back to actually go and amend it after you serve the summons, or after you got a protection order, or things like that, or after you've taken the kids away from the mother or the father. It's very difficult, because then that thing of emotional justice, people want to come in and get emotional justice because they blame the other person firstly for this breakup, and then the emotional stress comes in and they blame themselves because they feel that they failed themselves. They feel it's their fault, and they take it up, and that's where the darkness comes in, the depression and all of those things come in, and that's where I feel I help people through that time, not only for financial reasons, but also for personal and specifically the children. My heart went out for my kids. I was a loving dad that would give the kids everything, and the opportunity was just taken away at that stage.
Yeah, listeners saying, praise God for this gentleman who's there for people who are getting divorced. I've been there. It's really the children that suffer the most.
Yep.
Yeah, just echoing those words. Yeah. Yeah, and part of it, I guess, is the journey. And do you find some common things happening with people, sort of lack of accountability, or perhaps not in circles that often are of symptoms there?
You usually get the husband and he says, my wife is a narcissist, and you get the wife who says, my husband is no narcissist.
Yeah, sure.
So you get a blaming game, and then it becomes financially, and people do use the children. It's unfortunately that the kids are thrown in the middle of it, and they suffer the most. They don't understand, and then you sit and you've got that fight. Common things that happen is people want to rush it. They want to get it over and done with as quick as possible, and that's one of the hard things about divorce is you only got one shot.
Yeah.
You don't get a do-over. You can't go back and change it. So it's a huge financial implication because you've been working with this one pot of money, and now it's been split up. So all of a sudden you've got half that you were used to. And that is you're going from one household to two households now. So it's it's a terrible situation to be in, and it's almost like losing half of your income.
I can imagine as well during the whole process, the emotions, everything that's going through there, trying to make smart decisions at that time. It must be incredibly difficult.
Yep. I feel that people, if they go through that situation, and there is children involved, there is finances involved, they need to get themselves a good lawyer. They need to get themselves a good somebody that's either a pastor at church that carries them through this time. Get support. That's crucial, and not. Don't talk to your friends or your mother or somebody that's biased. Get a sounding board from somebody that can give you a realistic answer and that can tell you, listen, you're talking nonsense now. You're on the right track, Yep.
And the process, a long process?
The process, okay, so what people need to understand is 95% of all divorces is ending up in a settlement. So it's basically a negotiation. So it's either a negotiation with two people that are amicable to each other, or it's a negotiation with lawyers. Now, with lawyers, it's costing you a lot. And you've got lawyers that wants to go to high court when they can go to regional court. And therefore there's huge financial implications on making the wrong choices. That would possibly be one of the first things that I would ask a lawyer is, listen, are we going to high court or regional court? Because the difference in finances that you pay out on both sides is immense. It's 3-4 times the amount that you can do the same thing in regional court that you can do in high court. No difference.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So you've just mentioned a couple of things there. Make sure you get expert advice, particularly in these times. Prioritize some key issues during the discussion of what's happening, and some practical advice perhaps as well.
Yeah, a practical differentiate between and I've been very thankful in my situation is that there was a financial settlement before we discussed the settlements about the children. So that it was saying, listen, we both love the kids, so let's sort out the kids, and let's sort out the kids later, but let's get a financial settlement in order, in place. What is it going to take for us to split it up? So to be more like a man, put it in boxes.
Yeah, sure.
And women like to get things involved, but my heart goes out to women because there's abuse, there's a lot of things, but practical. Divide and conquer. Put it into different areas. Be practical. Take it step by step, and take it slow. Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about sort of the journey of faith in all of this.
Okay.
You're here as a divorce lawyer, having seen this, experienced this, now helping people. What we've been speaking about is what happens to most couples and most people, but as a Christian person navigating a very difficult time, sometimes amicably, sometimes not, sometimes it's to escape abuse, whatever it may be. How does one approach it then?
That's a really a difficult thing to wrap your head around, because we grow up as Christians. I come from a Christian home. We grow up as Christians, and one of the commandments is, listen, you don't get divorced. You don't cheat on your wife. You don't. You faithful, and you keep to the commandments. But the thing is, everything that we do is, and it's my belief, everything that we do is tinted by sin, and the Lord came to forgive us. So if you do go through a divorce, and it's firstly, try not to do it. But if you're in that situation and you do go through it, the Lord will forgive you. He will comfort you, and He will come to your rescue. And that's where I come in. I am an instrument sent by God.
Yes.
That's what Jesus did for us. I mean, it's as simple as it is. He came and he fought for the people that were the abused, the oppressed, the people that were in bad situations. And if I can help somebody get their kids back, or get a relationship with their kids going again, or even save a marriage. I've got plenty of cases where a summons is served, and then the parties actually get together again and says, but listen, let's try again. And I commend people for doing that, because it's very hard when you get to that point where you make that decision to go through with a divorce and then try again and make it work. So nothing is impossible. So I would think that that's my calling. And if you ask me, well, 30 years ago when I qualified as a lawyer, if you asked me, listen, are you going to go into family law? I would have told you, no. I don't believe in divorce, but after being through it myself, you need people to stand with other people when they get into that situation,
Yeah, and drawing closer to the Lord in this time, to find strength, to find faith, to trust Him for a miracle, whatever it may be. As you mentioned, sometimes the law's there doing stuff, but maybe you change your mind, make a different decision, and that happens. Yeah, that can happen, but only in the Lord.
I tell you, we were seeing a psychologist, and we had to go to the psychologist. And the ex was moving out of town, and I was sitting without the kids, and I was praying to the Lord, please help me to get my kids back to Port Elizabeth, and I want to be their dad. I want to be full-time involved with them. And the piece of scripture that came out was don't worry what you're going to say in front of other people. The Holy Spirit will give you the words.
Yes.
And I went into that situation with a psychologist that had to give us a recommendation with such a calmness, and I knew the Lord was there with me. And my miracle was that 6 months, 7 months, I can't remember, it was 2005, 6 months, 7 months afterwards, my kids were with me in Port Elizabeth, and they actually grew up. Daughter is now 26 in Poland, son is 23 years old, and they came through it very, very well. Yeah. So I'm blessed in that, in that sense.
But that was a tough time.
Yep. No.
Yeah, it was a very tough time. So the forgiveness of God, I think the forgiveness for oneself. I often speak to people who've been through these difficult times, a divorce, and there's this, you mentioned blame quite a lot, comes up quite often, but even to oneself, the forgiveness of oneself.
That's huge.
Holding yourself back from actually experiencing the fullness of what God, His love, and all that He has for you, because we're sort of stuck in the trap of blaming ourselves as well.
You blame yourself, everything. It's all consuming. It's all consuming. It's almost like I equate it to death in the family, or a retrenchment where you lose your income. You feel that you had some part, or that you had some part in the situation playing out, even if it's a small or a big part. And you blame yourself, and quite often that leads to depression. That leads to you looking inwards and you're blaming yourself, and you're thinking that you're not good enough. The loss of friends, because you lose your friends. It's as simple as that. Now you had a common group of friends, and now they have to choose. Do they go with her, or do they go with you? And at the end of the day, people just disappear, unfortunately. And you make new friendships. You don't have something in common with the people that you used to have in common with. So it's a real change in life, and it happens quite often, quickly. The change happened quickly, but the tail end of this emotional roller coaster, it's a long time, because let's say you've got a kid that's 5 years old. You're going to be in the life of that other person until your child is 21, 25. So the relationship with the ex is not going away very fast. You still have to manage that relationship, and now you're meeting somebody else, and it's your kids and my kids. So it's a very long, drawn out process in terms of emotions and self-blame and all of those.
You talk about all these things, and I start to see people sort of isolating themselves, and I can see that in people that I know that have been through really difficult divorces. So isolate, and then they lose their friendships, and they basically have to go and start a new life elsewhere. And then often that doesn't work out well, because you haven't got that safety of those who you thought were loving you or walking with you. It becomes a very lonely space then.
It does, but there's good news. Life after divorce.
Yes, yeah.
So my journey didn't end up being a disaster. I've been blessed. I met a wonderful woman. We've got a child together, my third, and I tell you, my marriage is God honoring.
Yes.
And we do everything together. We're walking, and yes, we are people, we suffer from the human condition.
Yeah, for sure.
But we've got that. But then you get somebody that supports you and that understands you, and you get in a new place where things become better. And that's what with the thing that my principal told me years ago. There's life after divorce.
Yeah.
There is hope, and this is what your station is.
Yes, of course.
That's basically what we're trying to give people is hope. Doesn't matter how dark it is now.
Yeah.
There's hope, and there is help.
Yeah. And it comes from Christ and Christ alone.
Yes. Yes.
In Him, accepting Him, His forgiveness.
Accepting Him and accepting. Being humble.
Yeah.
I often see people want this emotional justice, want to go out and fight and hurt the other person. I don't like that at all. But it's about protecting your rights, getting a fair settlement, getting a reasonable, what the law is there. The law provides. The law is not always fair, but the Lord is looking at your inner person, your inner self, your inside. The Lord is looking at who you are inside and becoming more Jesus-like on a daily basis, and taking up that cross on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I want to say, I really feel stirred just to say there are couples who are just going through a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of demanding on families who are together, and some who are perhaps not feeling too connected couples. What would you say to them from a godly perspective of what you've seen and what you see all the time? What would your encouragement be for couples who are maybe going through a bit of a tough time?
Have an honest and open conversation. Tell the other person not what they're doing wrong. Tell the other person what your intentions are. So if you make your intentions clear, that I want you to have a good, loving, happy life. This is why I'm here. This is the reason why I chose you as my wife, as my husband. This is, and then after you've had that open conversation, pray together. That's absolutely crucial. Is praying together, discussing the things of God. I watched a YouTube video. Everything that God wants you to know is in the Bible.
Yeah.
He gave us that book, and that is what he wants you to know. So don't go and look for things outside, and draw nearer with each other. Go to church together. There's it's not miracles. It is the Lord loves us, and He always loves us, and He's always close. But if we seek, we will find Him.
Yeah, very good. Francois, thank you so much for your time. For those interested in connecting with you, more information, where can we find you? Hey, what's the easiest to do?
Easiest to do is search for Pauw Attorneys on Google, or you can WhatsApp me at 083 554 8776. You send your name and if you want a question or something, you just send it through to me on WhatsApp, that number 083 554 8776.
All right, I've got all the details with me in studio. That's Pauw with a P-A-U-W, hey?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and your encouragement, eh?
Okay,
Bless
thank you. Thank you for the time.
Frekwensies vol geloof.
Unqa phambili kwezokholo Kingfisher FM.